This meeting is being recorded.
Good afternoon, evening, whatever it is where you guys are when we're starting this. Welcome. We are doing a Meet the Regions webinar here for everyone who's interested in moving to New Hampshire. We've got assembled a panel of folks who have lived here for a little while, and we'd like to go around and introduce who is going to be participating. My name is Dominic. I'm an agent with Porcupine Real Estate, and I am co-hosting with Amber. Amber, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amber. I am also an agent with Porcupine Real Estate, and I live in the Merrimack Valley region. But I've lived in lots of different regions across the state. I lived in Keene for a while, and I lived up in the Lakes region for a short time. And I also own land that I've lived on in Grafton.
Great. And Constance is also here. She is one of our brokers at Porcupine Real Estate. I'll say hello, Constance.
Hello. I'm here to monitor the chat and record, and I've also, we've got Manchester well covered, and that's pretty much the only place I've lived, so I'm going to learn.
Excellent. And we have assembled quite a few folks here from all around the states. So I'm going to just start with any in particular region, and we'll say who's from that. If you hear your region call, say your name and where you're from, and we'll start there. How's that sound? So Lakes region.
You know what? Actually, I think that's supposed to be Mike Sylvia, and he just messaged that he was having a hard time. Oh, I'm going to let him in.
I'm letting him in right now.
We'll come back to Lakes. We'll start with
okay.
Like you said, Seacoast, that's me. I'm Stephen Nast. I live in the Seacoast region. I've lived all up and down it, from Milton to Madbury and Portsmouth, and yeah, all over the place.
How long have you been here, Stephen?
More than 5 years. More than 5 years. I've lived on the Seacoast for pretty much all of that. Yeah.
Great. How about North Country? Who do we have from the North Country?
I'm here representing the North Country. Just trying to get the audio assorted. Seeing if I can use my headphones, but glad to be here.
And your name?
Oh, sorry. I'm Drew Mandamudi. My wife and I actually lived in the Seacoast for about a year, and then just bought our house, thanks to Porcupine, in the North Country about a few months ago now.
Awesome, thank you. And Monadnock.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Bazell, and we live in Peterborough. We've been here about a year and a half now.
Okay, and what we've got the Lakes region. Come back to that one.
Mike, can you hear us? That's you if you want to unmute.
I am in. Sorry.
Oh, and then we've got Upper Valley.
Hi.
Emily, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Emily Smith. I'm from Croydon, New Hampshire, which is Upper Valley region, and so is Jody.
Yep, I'm Jody. Live in the Upper Valley in Croydon. We moved up with Emily actually 15 years ago now.
And then I think the last one is going to be Merrimack Valley. Thank you so much, Jody and Emily.
Hi, my name's Mari. I live in Manchester. I moved here 5 years ago from California.
Welcome. Awesome. Great.
My name's Adam. I also live in Manchester, and I've been here since August of 2014. So we just started our 9th year.
How long has Mike Sylvia been here?
I've been in New Hampshire since 2010.
All right. Thanks everybody for introducing yourself. Basically, the way we're going to run today is we're going to just go through the slides here. And as we get to a topic, we're just going to kind of call on each region, and you can share some stories or your experience with the topic at hand. So we'll start there.
I just want to mention for all guests that are here listening, it's very interactive. So if you have questions or comments or anything you want to know or have input on, please feel free to ask. You can type it in the chat or you can unmute and ask your questions.
Yeah, so basically we'll just kind of give a quick overview, and this is more for the folks who aren't already in New Hampshire. Hopefully you've had a chance to visit New Hampshire. It is a beautiful, beautiful place, full of great diversity as far as the types of land and amenities that you can find in all different parts of the state. You know, you got the coastal areas, you've got your lakes region, you've got North Country if you want to hike and live in the middle of, you know, not a whole lot of things going on around you. You've got your Upper Valley, which is similar to the North Country, but a little bit more, I would say, well populated. Maybe anybody can agree or disagree on that. And then Merrimack and Monadnock are definitely both much more, you know, traditional living kind of situation. You've got your businesses around you. You've got a lot of that kind of stuff going on. So anybody have anything they'd like to say about their region, just as a broad overview?
Well, you keep saying the Upper Valley's got nothing going on, but it totally does. Just like to point that out.
I shouldn't, yeah, I didn't say it that way. I shouldn't have said it that way. I apologize.
Actually, he said that about North Country. I'm not from North Country, but I would bet that everybody would say it differently. How I would describe it all is there's rural parts in all of these different regions, and there are things to do in all the different regions. I mean, there's a large part of North Country that has a lot more going on than well, in some rural parts of Upper Valley. So yeah, it's
I don't think that map is completely updated because Drew, I don't think you're on there. That would be way further up if your property was on there, right?
Yeah, go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, no, we're up in Pittsburgh, so we're pretty much at the northern tip there of New Hampshire. Yeah. So at the tip of the North Country, so still classified in that region. I think it's correct on the map, but yeah.
So what's it like up there?
It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, the reason my wife and I, you know, lived in California for a long time and then escaped, and we're renting in Dover while we kind of explore different parts of the state and wanted to take our time really to decide where we want to eventually buy and live for the long term. And we came up to Pittsburgh a couple of times, just, you know, hikes, things like that, and just fell in love with it. It is one of the most peaceful places I have ever seen in my life. It's absolutely quiet. You're surrounded by just woods and lakes. At night, when you look up at the sky, you can see every single star imaginable. It is one of the most beautiful places that you can be. You do sacrifice in terms of convenience. I mean, the closest Walmart is about an hour and a half. Closest Target is a couple hours, et cetera. So there, you do sacrifice, I suppose, in terms of commercialized, you know, convenience. But I think you gain a lot if you want to be in nature, if you want to have a homestead, if you want to get a decent chunk of land. I think I can't think of a better place than being in the North Country. So it's kind of my small spiel. And I just realized, yes, you're right. I am not on the map just because it's so far up north. I think you'd have to scale the map down a little bit to really get our pin on there. So yeah, we're technically not on the map right now. But yeah.
Did we miss somebody for an invite? For an intro? Adam's in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Adam.
Oh, no, I think I did an intro. I said I'm Adam, representing the Merrimack Valley and all. I was just.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay.
I don't know how that happened.
Well, nothing to worry about. So everybody can still hear and see and everything like that, right? Okay. So yeah, culture and community. So each of the areas of New Hampshire have a very vibrant community going on in them. I would say the heaviest, I don't even want to make any generalizations because you guys can definitely talk about your individual areas better than I can because a lot of you organize events in these areas. So I won't even start with any of that. So if you would, why don't we start with Adam and Mari for the Merrimack Valley? What do you guys have going on as far as culture and community in that area?
I feel like that'll take the next 2 hours.
So I would have to say we're both in Manchester, and there's a huge concentration of porcupines in Manchester. So there's a lot going on there. I mean, to list it would be crazy. I think that the best thing to do is you can go on the calendar. There's an FSP calendar that shows and lists all the events. But just to name a few events last year, there was chili cook-offs, there was hockey games, there was movie nights. I'm part of an organization that does monthly neighborhood cleanups, trunk or treats, things for families and kids. And then there's also a lot of the political stuff happening here. There's weekly meetups at bars in downtown. I mean, there's so much. It's great. And I think that this is a good place to meet a lot of people with a lot of varying interests in Manchester that is all pretty close to one location.
Great. Anything you want to add, Adam?
Yes, Mari is one of the great leaders here in Manchester, and she's too modest to plug her organization, which is We Heart West, and it's absolutely fantastic. They do a lot for the West Side community that we're trying to build up, and she puts on all kinds of great events. The big one we just had was the We Heart West annual We Heart West Day. I'm not saying it right, but it was an entire festival that she put together for one of the parks down here, and it was fantastic. And she just does a tremendous amount. What we do over at the Porcupine Outdoor Recreation Club is we try to have monthly events where we're just going outside. We'll do anything outside, but we try to do hikes and camping trips and things like that. So for the thing that I manage, that's what we do is just outside events and barbecues and cookouts. And I try to always set up a tailgate on any event that I can go to. I try to set up the Porcupine Mobile, we've started calling it, and I set up a big tailgate party, and we try to just go outside and recreate. There's plenty of activism going on. There's plenty of politics going on, and what we try to do at the outdoor club is just to forget all that and go outside and play sometimes. And our motto that we try to practice is we practice liberty and freedom through going outside and playing, and that's kind of what we try to do. And all the events that happen in Manchester are just outrageous. There's probably 7 this week through various people, various organizations that are just constantly running things in the Merrimack Valley, because there's probably hundreds of libertarians and hundreds of porcupines in this area. So it's just very, very busy all the time. And another area that's very busy is also Portsmouth, the Seacoast area. They do a lot. But that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's great. That's a good lead into the Seacoast area. Stephen, what do you got?
Yeah, we can seg into the Seacoast. So the Seacoast is very busy. When it comes to culture and community, we're very focused on that and building community. We have multiple community centers. We have many events. We are very active with the outdoor recreation as well. Whether it's sports or hiking or going to the beach, we kind of have it all on the Seacoast. We really have a little bit of everything. We're not as urban as Manchester, but you can still go to the mall and the movie theater. But then we do a day every year where we hike a mountain and then go to the beach on the same day. So we really can do everything. We have a lot of organizations out here, whether it's homeschooling groups or political groups. We're just kind of active overall in that area. It's one of our big strengths.
Great, great. Okay, that will lead us into, who wants to go next? How about Stephanie?
Yeah, so we've been in Monadnock region for 1.5 years now, and I will be honest, I struggled a little in the beginning because it felt like a quiet area in terms of the Free State calendar, unless you were going into Keene that had regular meetups. But then I realized it just was a little more quiet and almost a little more underground. And once you tapped into the community, there was a lot of things going on. And so there's weekly and monthly meetups and potlucks and community gardens and farms and regular hikes. There's a lot of stuff for the kids. And so we've really been enjoying tapping into everything that this area has to offer. And there's a lot of access to museums and culture and arts. So it's been a really well-rounded region to be in.
So when you say it's like more underground, how, if it's not on the FSP calendar, is it something that, how would you, if you're in that area, how would you get in touch with those folks?
So that was actually something that I have been working with Dennis and some other FSP people a little bit on, and Chris Lopez, to try and get more on the calendar in this area. And so there are some things on the calendar now. I offer family-based events, and that makes the calendar. And then I know that there's some FSP events at a mountain bike park at an FSP house. And they have regular or occasional events, and they make the calendar. And then I think once you're tapped into some of the events that make the calendar, the other events kind of open up and you're more aware of what's in the area. And the more connections you make, I tell people, talk to people, grow connections, meet your neighbors, because there's a lot that the communities have to offer.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. How about Emily and Jody?
Jody, you want to go first?
I'm sure. Wow. All right. So culturally, so we're right near Dartmouth, Hitchcock, and the Lebanon area in Hanover. And they offer a lot of cultural things. There's there's shows, and New London also has a lot of shows, and they have community theater, I guess, in New London. They have dancing out the wazoo up at Dartmouth, and it is opening up again. I just got my first invitation to it. It didn't mention masks or vaccinations, so I was really thrilled. So it might actually open soon. So lots of dancing. There's I mean, things going on. There's Bardo Farm. There's always something going on at Bardo Farm, and I'll let Emily talk about that more. But community is, I mean, you know, we're not like Manchester or anything, but we have a growing community in the larger Upper Valley area. There's more than
Especially in the last couple of years.
Yeah, the last couple of years for sure. I went to a move-in party in Claremont, and there were like 15 people showed up, and they all live in Claremont. It was unbelievable. Maybe more than 15. I didn't actually count. I was surprised. I knew all of them, but I just didn't realize it, you know. And our meetups are starting up again, and we have like 4 or 5 different meetups across the month all around the area, down at Kirby's Q on the, I think it's second Thursday. We have our potluck at Bardo Farm for Saturday. We have last Tuesday of the month is what we call Liberty Tuesday, and it's up in West Leb at Ziggy's Pizza Place. Grafton has a monthly meetup, second Sundays. I can't believe I have all this stuff in my head. They're all in the calendar though, fsp.org/calendar. And there's a lot of people in Grafton too that showed up when I went last month, and there were just like a couple dozen people there, let's say, probably about 30 or so. And we get groups like that at our potluck also. Yeah, it's a growing, thriving community. I mean, it's like an extended family is how it feels to me, with everybody around. I'll pass it to Emily.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, so Jody and I are two of the founders of Bardo Farm, Bardo Project. So we've been around for 15 years. And when we first moved here, we had to go to Manchester to see anybody to do anything fun. So now you guys have the privilege of being in any region and having all sorts of stuff going on. But it's really amazing how our little area where we didn't really know many people now is just full. I mean, we started a little homeschool group a few years ago, and now there's, you know, upwards of 50 people if they all show up at the same time, 60 maybe even, and meeting more every week. We had a field trip a couple days ago. I met more people, and, you know, some of these are, you know, Liberty people that moved here for the same reasons as the Free State Project. And so there's just a lot of Liberty kind of ingrained in this area. We have all sorts of nice hiking trails. I can't believe how many beautiful, well-maintained trails and little hiking spots, waterfalls, things like that are tucked into this area that we didn't even find out about until the last few years even. And that just creates a lot of lovely culture, going to the beach, you know, going to these places where there'll be live music at a town green, just all sorts of awesome stuff. But as far as kids go, I'm really lucky. I didn't look into this being an area where I'd want to raise kids, but it's one of the best places you could raise kids as far as all the opportunities. We're not far from, like Jody said, the Dartmouth area where there's museums, shopping, all sorts of stuff like that. But we're really not that far from even Manchester or Keene, or I travel all over the state every month. So it's nice to be able to kind of be kind of central to everything.
Great, thank you very much. How about Dhruv? What's going on up in the North Country?
The North Country. I mean, it is having lived in the seacoast for a while. It's comparatively a smaller community, but it is definitely very, very active. We have every second Saturday of the month we do a potluck / a game night. So, you know, everyone gets together, board games, etc. And there's usually a rotation. So we'll kind of host it at different folks' houses. You know, in the North Country. We just had the last one at our place. And then every third Saturday, we do kind of a general potluck dinner. Again, there is a rotation, and so it'll be at someone's house, and we'll just there'll be talking and, you know, eating, and oftentimes if there's a fire pit, there'll be marshmallows roasting, and it'll go along into the night. So it's just a lot of fun. And then every fourth Saturday of the month, we host what we call the North Country Marketplace. So folks around the area will kind of bring, you know, different things to sell and to exchange. So oftentimes it'll be food, things like cupcakes, different items like that. Craft work. One of the folks in the North Country actually has a laser cutter, and so he uses that to make a lot of very, very cool things out of wood. So I've seen all different kinds of products and services, etc. And so it's a lot of fun to do that. Then once in July every summer we do like this very, very large beach day bash. Generally it's in Vermont. This year it was at Stark in Stark Lake, I believe it was. We weren't able to go, my wife and I, but that generally is a blast. And then we usually do a maple syrup extraction around March, and then we're actually doing an apple pressing as part of the fall foliage tour this coming Saturday. So lots of events. It's really the community as I would describe it in the North Country. It feels much more familial. So it's a lot more like a family. You know, anything you need, if you have like a plumbing issue or like an electrical issue, you can just call someone up. That's a part of the North Country Free State family, and they'll come by to help you out. Politically, you know, there's a lot of great, even though we don't host a plethora of events that the quill and the shell host. Generally, we always have riveting conversations, and so it's a blast on all fronts. I think the biggest distinction I would say is it has much more of like a familial feeling. The community does, and while folks I think tend to come up to the North Country to just be independent and be left alone, we do have a lot of regular activities like the potlucks and game nights and marketplaces that really make you feel like a part of a great group.
Great, thank you very much. And Mike, tell us about the lakes.
Let me get myself unmuted. Yeah, we have a regular monthly lunch meeting on the third Saturday of the month at noon. Well, we've shifted locations, but they're generally posted in the calendar. We have a website, lakesregionporcupines.org. We generally, for our lunch meetings, it's a pretty casual thing. Not much formal goes on, but a dozen to 2 dozen people show up and have lunch, talk Liberty. Actually, we've got a lot of even some of the local folks who have started joining up with us. We tend to be a little bit political here in Lakes region. And of course that draws fire, but that's okay. We make the headlines. So we have a good meeting there.
I'd like to challenge you on that, Mike.
Oh, you're saying that we are not targeted by the governor and all the extreme leftists?
No, you are, but we get in the headlines as well. So I'm just saying,
yeah,
it's a challenge. Not I'm saying you're lying. No, I totally know you're in the news. Yeah.
Okay. Well, recently anyway, we've been I think taking the trophy. So we've got our monthly here in that actually happens in Belmont, which is right next to Laconia on the what would we be southwest side of the big lake, Lake Winnipesaukee. A new meetup has started over in Ossipee, well, not Ossipee, but Wolfboro, and I am rather embarrassed that I don't have the information for you, but I'm sure it shows up in the calendar, and I'll have to highlight that on our website too. It's a little bit neglected, but and I'm not on Facebook, so I miss out on all kinds of wonderful things. Besides our monthly lunch, we have an adopt a highway, stretch of highway that we do litter pickup on about 4 times a year, and there's a sign out there that says Lakes Region Porcupines, so we get a little bit of advertising. And we've generally run every summer a beach day where we have a gathering at the beach and cook out and that sort of thing, and do a fundraiser for some Christmas giving for children that we put together also. So pretty busy. We cover a good area. A lot of people are doing various different things. And I've been wrapped up in politics, so I'm a little bit out of the loop on some of the other stuff. I know that Tony has a place called The Bond, and I'm not sure exactly what's happening over there. So I'm sorry about that. But yeah, it's a busy place. We're active. It's very touristy in the summer. Obviously, with the big lake, we've got all kinds of water activities. In the winter, it gets a little bit quieter, but there's ice fishing and sled dog derbies, and obviously we have skiing here at a county-owned ski area, which is a real thorn in my side. But when county owns a something like that, it's not good. Not good. So those are the things that go on. Really busy here in the summer. Gets a little bit quieter in the winter. We got pretty good bit of snow, but if you like snowmobiling and that sort of stuff, that also happens around here. And of course, is trails and mountains. We're in between the North Country and down towards the more populated areas in Manchester and down south. So I think we have access to the best of both worlds.
Great. Thank you very much, Mike. We'll go to the next, unless anybody has anything else they want to add about culture or community before we move on to the next.
Yeah, I just wanted to add real quick. I was mostly talking about our Liberty culture and community, but there's so much else going on in our region, and there's something really cool in the town next to us, Newport. They have all sorts of community events, and they have the longest running winter carnival that happens the coldest week of the year, like in the dead of February. And we were in a parade, and it was like -20, and it's I think gone on for over 100 years, and they have all these crazy events, over 100 events all through town and stuff like that, that I just think make New Hampshire what it is and make it so awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of quirky little festivals all throughout the state that I've been having so much fun going to these different places and checking them out. I actually bartend as a separate job in Exeter, and a few weekends ago they had the Exeter UFO Festival, which was a blast to kind of walk around. So pretty fun. And we'll switch over to Amber.
Our next slide kind of ties into the last one. It's about recreation and social. And I think Mari had mentioned the FSP calendar, and there's a little, shows you right down on the bottom of the screen, fsp.org/calendar. And there are so many events on there. Like, you couldn't do everything in one day if you tried. So I was gonna if you have an event that you host regularly that's on the calendar, I would like you guys to maybe discuss it, talk a little bit about your event, how you go about getting your event on the calendar. I know Stephanie had mentioned that. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Steven start.
All right. Well, one event, that's a tough one, but yeah, here on the Seacoast, we have many events all the time. So I'll just breeze through them real fast. So every Thursday, somebody hosts a dinner meetup. We rotate between 4 different towns. You can see on the calendar that they are organized by region, color coded, so they're easy to find. But yeah, we go like Dover, Exeter, Rochester, Seabrook, and then if there's a 5th Thursday, we pick another random place to go that we want to go to. Afterwards, after that dinner meetup, we go to the Shell, which is our community center in Rollinsford, and we'll have an after party there. Oftentimes we have many other events. We do movie nights, we do debates, we do discussions, we do a new mover potluck. Manchester does one as well. We do so much stuff. Yeah, then outdoor events. We have regular days where we go to the shooting range. White Birch Armory is very Free Stater friendly. A lot of Free Staters work there, and they're kind of like the sleek, clean place to go shoot. So if you're a first time shooter, it's a good place to go. We really just like packing the calendar full of stuff. In the fall, we do have the Free Coast Community Festival, which is kind of all of our activities into one. What else do we do? Tons of stuff. We just do tons of stuff. I guess I can mention too the Independence Inn where I work. Yeah, sorry. It's like technically in the Lakes region, but I'll talk about it. So it's like a Free Stater owned restaurant/inn. It's a great first spot for people to come stay and hang out and make connections if they're interested in moving here for the Free State Project. Yeah, we have a lot of Free Staters that come there, but we also do a lot of events there. So we have Liberty Meetup there once a month, which is on the calendar there. We have a Farmers and Homesteaders Meetup, and then we just host tons of other events there. And yeah, Emily is often coming out for the Farmers Meetup there, and it's a good opportunity for us to not only have different meetups of different interests, but we also rope a lot of the locals and natives of New Hampshire into coming out. And I guess I just want to say also, like, if you're thinking about moving here and you're not seeing your favorite activities on the calendar, all you have to do is move here and then say you're doing the thing, and people will ask you how can they help. contact any of us if you want to figure out how to like actually get it physically on the calendar. It's not that hard to do. And you're like pretty much guaranteed to get people to show up because there are thousands of us, and chances are if it's something you enjoy doing, we probably like it as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. All right. Does anybody want to volunteer to go next to talk about an event that you're hosting? Mari?
Can I do more than one?
Absolutely.
I talk about more than one. So like I mentioned before, we do cleanups. We Heart West is an organization that I'm part of, and we do 2 cleanups a month, not in winter, but we also hosted West Manchester Day, like Adam mentioned. So I helped organize that. It was field games. It was really fun. We do that every year. We're going to do trunk or treat. I made a list. Trunk or treats coming up. We decorate a tree on a trail in Manchester. So that's really fun. I'm hosting a V for Vendetta 5th of November movie night again, 2nd annual.
What day would it be on this year, Mari?
It's gonna be on the 5th. I won't be on vacation this year. It'll be on the 5th. So that's happening. I host Narcissistic Christmas every year. We've done 4, I think. It's like the epitome of, you know, individualism, where you buy yourself a gift, you bring it wrapped, and you open it and share it with the group. So we do that every year. I hosted a hockey game last year. We had about 300 people come to watch Libertarian hockey players play against Republican hockey players. Adam did a tailgate there, which is really great. So we're going to do that again this year. Hopefully get more people to come out. We raised $3,000 for charity to support Children's Scholarship Fund. And Libertarians won 5-4. I did a chili cook-off last year, and then I don't know. I think that's it.
Thank you,
Is
Mari.
the hockey game scheduled already? Because I want to go to that this year. I heard so much about it from people last year. So
It'll be probably late February. I can't schedule it yet. It's a little bit too early. But yeah, I hope you're able to come because it was a really fun game.
awesome.
All right. Does anyone else have an event they want to plug?
I already
Sure.
listed all the ones in the Upper Valley and surrounding area, but you know, it's funny because I mean, we have them in our areas, but we all go to each other's events too. I would not, you know, there's no fence, gated fence around the Upper Valley, right? I'll go down to, I tried to go to that, to the hockey game, and something came up at the last minute, but I got all my gear. I was like ready to go. I've been to New Movers Party down in Manchester. I mean, you know, we all, like everybody here hosting and, you know, moderate, whatever we're called, the speakers, we all know each other, you know, and we see each other outside of Zoom on occasion.
But we do host a lot of events with the farm.
Go ahead, do it.
Well,
Yeah.
in case nobody said, you guys in Manchester, before you move on from there, you guys have Liberty Forum coming up, right? In the winter.
Boy, I haven't heard it. I haven't heard a date about that this year. Have you?
And
Don't
for
forget about
other
Get
people,
to Know Hampshire weekends, sponsored by Porcupine Real Estate. That's
Yeah.
covering the entire state.
That's coming up. Like
Yeah.
next
October 7th through the 10th.
Yeah.
but then also
We
the
are
biggest
posting
event of
part
the
of
year,
that.
right?
What?
That's the biggest
Sorry,
event of the year
Pork
is
Fest.
Pork Fest in the North Country. And I'm co-producer this year, so
Ooh.
jazz hands.
All right. Who's the other co-producer?
Yeah.
Who are you co-producing
Dennis.
with?
Dennis and I are.
Dennis.
Well, I'd love
Awesome.
to plug some Bardo Farm events for sure before we go into the big ones. I don't know. Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Emily. I'm going to moderate here
I
and say
didn't
go
know if
ahead.
you guys.
Go ahead.
Okay. So at Bardo Farm, we've been hosting a potluck since we moved here 15 years ago. It used to be every weekend because we're crazy, and now it's once a month because we're a little less crazy. So every first Saturday of the month at our farm, you can come take a tour of the farm. You get to meet everybody. It's kind of like our new movers party for the area too, because I feel like last month anyway, the first 4 families that showed up, I didn't know. So that's always really cool because it is on the FSP calendar, so people show up. And we don't necessarily know who's coming, and it's so much fun. And we do special potlucks as well. So we had our 15-year farm anniversary party last month, and we did fireworks, we did a pig roast, stuff like that.
We had a shoot beforehand
November,
too. I'm going to jump in. We had a shoot beforehand for anybody who wanted to come up, because we have a shooting range on our property. So, I mean, we have to know you, and if you're beginners, it's a really good place to start.
That is unrelated to the farm, FYI, insurance agents.
Absolutely unrelated. I'm in a different different property than that. That's right. And the potlucks also attract not just new movers, but people looking around the state, because they're also using the calendar. They follow the calendar more than I do. I often forget to look on it to see what's going on anymore. The newbies
and we've
tend to
often
look
had
there
people
more.
come to the potluck and then decide they want to move to this area because we were so much fun.
Happens a lot. Yeah.
But we also host a so just the potluck coming up too, that's pretty fun, is our zombie apocalypse potluck, which is usually, it's the first Saturday in November, because we like to do it just after Halloween, cheaper decorations and whatnot. But it is a zombie party, it's not a Halloween party, which involves a full game of trying to survive the night without turning into a zombie. So we get a lot of people for those kind of events, even like up to 100. We have a live band this time, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. But we also do, for the holidays, we do like a Yankee gift swap. So there's usually a lot of people. If you can't get up our road, we can pick you up at the bottom. So that's the only hard part, is we live on a hill on a dirt road. But we also do kids events. So this Friday is Farm Friday with Friends, which just started back up. So we kind of take the summer off because the kids are too spread out for the summer. But we're starting back up with our monthly kids event, which is mostly homeschoolers, but other kids too that come to the area. And sometimes they have off school on Fridays too, so they're able to pop in. So we'll do that Friday. We'll take a tour of the farm, see all the new piglets, check out the gardens, and we're probably going to do like a survival class too and build a shelter, a debris shelter, that kind of stuff. But then we also I host, not at the farm, but all over our area, a bunch of homeschool events. So we already had an event this week, but we have another one tomorrow, or on Wednesday, we're going to go apple picking at a local farm. On Thursday, we have a book club party. So we all read the same book, and then we do a big fun party together. And then Fridays, Farm Friday with Friends. We also host a entrepreneur meetup on Friday nights with our core group of friends, which has grown quite a bit too. And we've had guest entrepreneurs from other regions join us. I think that's it for our events, our regular events.
You do market days as well, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Did you mention that?
I do. Yeah. So for actually the market day that I'm mostly hosting right now is in Manchester. So that is a great event to meet people, to mingle, to meet other farmers, homesteaders, and crafters, and everything else. It's a great place to use alternative currencies, to barter, use crypto, use gold and silver and stuff like that. So if you ever want to vend and check out a market day, there's a few around the state. There's one in Keene, there's one in Manchester, and there's others in flux right now. And North Country.
So let's meet.
You want to plug Bardo Farm a little bit there, Emily? Like, what do you sell?
Fine. So yeah, our farm is grown over the years, and we have lots of pigs, lots of cows. We do chickens, turkeys, sheep, veal. We have other stray animals that hang out. So we do monthly meat plans, like a meat CSA. You can get half or whole animals. You can do piecemeal, and we have our meat in 4 different farm stands in our area right now. And then I also deliver all over to the different regions. So if so at the market days or other regular pickups, I'll be driving around with a shady white van full of meat.
Okay, who else?
Something else?
Oh, sorry. All right, anyone else have an event they want to share? Regular or just a one-time thing?
Halloween's coming up here. There's going to be, besides the Bardo party that's not Halloween, the zombie party, At the Shell on the 29th, we're having our big Halloween party. It should be massive. It's jungle themed this year, and it's also the 2nd anniversary of the Shell. I'm assuming the Quill will have a party as well. But then that Sunday, so the day before Halloween, we're also having like more of a family-friendly Halloween party at the Independence Inn as well.
Ooh, that sounds fun. I love Halloween.
Yeah, the Get to Know New Hampshire weekend has events all over the state. Definitely plug that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Adam, did you want to mention the corn maze?
Yeah, so we're working with Porcupine Real Estate to put on the Get to Know New Hampshire. We're hosting the corn maze event over at Trombley Farms. I was trying to get the image up, but I can't really share the image in the chat. It won't really let me. But I'll try to figure that out. But it's on October 7th, and it's from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. But once it gets dark, once we get to dusk, we're going to play a movie. So it's a little after 8 p.m. I think we're going to do the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown is what we're going to do. There's going to be, I've got about 30 people signed up for that. And usually right at the last minute, we'll get another 10 or 20. So it'll probably be about 50 people. I don't know how many people Constance has on her list, but it's going to be a great event that's coming up. There's going to be about 3,000 people at Trombley Farms over that weekend because they do a big month-long Halloween festival. And from Friday to Sunday evening, they'll probably have about 3,000 people that visit their farm. It's the Trombley Gardens, but it's a farm, and they'll have a bunch of foot traffic there. So another thing that we do is the outdoor club is like outward facing. So we're a public group, and everybody around is welcome to come over and join us when we're having a tailgate. And so part of the event is also to reach out to other people that are there and let them know how much fun the Free State Project can be, and Porcupine Real Estate and the outdoor club, and just kind of share our community with everybody else. But that's what's coming up, and that's like our purpose and why we do it.
Adam, are you doing a baseball game again next year?
Yeah, the baseball game is every year. And that's always a big hit. We've only done it 2 years. I've only managed the outdoor club for 3 years, but we did it two years now. And then at the last game, I think it was July 9th, we got it delayed a few times. I think it started in April, and then it got rained out, and then we did it in July 9th, and there were 105 people that went. The stadium reached out this year and invited us back as their guests because we were such a good crowd. And that happens at the Fisher Cats. That's where I got this hat here. And we buy bulk tickets, so we get a discounted rate. Then we get a ballpark meal, which is hot dog, chips, and a drink. Then we get the hat. And then they give us a whole section. So the whole Porcupine Club, the outdoor club, they get a whole section, and we just go nuts. We let the kids run around. They do whatever they want to do. And this year we had some hecklers up on the top row that were giving the baseball players a hard time. It was a lot of fun. And that's another big one that we have. Thank you.
And Adam, didn't you actually have people that were not porcupines that like the porcupines started chatting with and like doing outreach right there at the ball game?
Yeah, that kind of happens at all the FSP events, really. I mean, anytime we get to mingling with the public, we try to infect them with our liberty and freedom. And so at these outdoor events, part of my outreach or activism or whatever word you want to choose, what I try to do is I try to integrate 10% of just normal, regular people into our community. And so we had about 10% of people that were invited that were just regular folks that I've met around the community, around the neighborhood. And then while we were hanging out in the parking lot, we did a big tailgate party there as well. We had music playing. Somebody had brought an entire bottle of Jameson, and we were having a real good time in the parking lot. And we wound up meeting, I guess, 4 or 5 people there, and they just followed us in and bought their tickets and hung out with us because we were already having so much fun in the parking lots. So it's a good time. It's a lot.
Thanks, Adam. So on October 8th at 3 p.m., I will be going to Peterborough with a bunch of families, and we're going to go to the Mariposa Museum. I've never been, but it comes highly recommended. I've heard that it's very family friendly. They have a lot of interactive stuff for young children. So I'm really excited to check that out. And then the day after, on the 9th, I'm doing apple picking at 11 a.m. at Washburn. I believe the name of it is Washburn Farms. So that's going to be really fun too. I've heard great things about that orchard. So feel free to come visit us there. It's going to be a good time.
I have one.
There's a lot going on the 8th too. I think there's at least 3 different things I know about.
Yeah, there's a barn dance barter market day at Lauren Noon's in Henniker.
Rooted free.
Sorry?
Rooted free.
Rooted, there we go. Rooted free. Yeah, that's also October 8th, starting at like 4 p.m. What else, Emily? You said 3.
I think there's a casino night somewhere as well. I'm not sure on the details. A lot of this stuff isn't even on the calendar.
Yeah.
So if you,
I'm actually sponsoring the casino night. So if anybody wants more details, just message me.
Yeah, a lot of the events that we just mentioned are on the gettoknownewhampshire.com, gettoknownh.com. If you go there, you'll see a list of the events for that weekend. There's a bunch of events, like more than you could do.
We are hosting a tour at our farm on Sunday. Next Sunday, we're hosting a couple hours to see the farm as well.
Yeah, but for sure for the potential movers here, when you get here, make sure you get roped in on our, internal chats and stuff, because like that casino night, there's tons of events that you just don't even see on here. And I mean, that casino night's going to have like 50 people at it or something, and it's not even on the FSP calendar. So there's tons of other stuff. Just make sure you get roped in and just show up to stuff. Don't just get an invite, just show up, and that'll be your invite right there.
I'll take this opportunity too to mention that I'll be at Tamworth Distilling on the 8th, the Saturday the 8th as well, doing a guided spirit flight as well. So it should be a lot of fun. That place is amazing. If you guys haven't been there, you should definitely check it out.
All right, I think we're ready for the next slide.
Okay, so the next slide is about housing. So why don't we just kind of do a quick go person to person, kind of saying how you got here, as far as did you start with renting? Did you go right into buying? What was your journey to getting a house here in New Hampshire? Or if you're renting right now, that's fine as well. Just kind of let us know. We'll start right up at the top. So how about Mike? What's your experience with housing in New Hampshire?
Okay. So when I moved here in 2010, I found an apartment. They can be hard to find, and I'm sure it's much worse right now. But it seems like the little places, they don't advertise a whole lot. You need to kind of poke around Craigslist and whatnot to find something that's available. At least that's what I found in the Lakes region here. So I had a little apartment on the main strip in Laconia where Bike Week occurs. So that was interesting to have the front row seat for Bike Week. Bike Week is one of, I think, 4 huge motorcycle events, and thousands of bikes show up, and it goes on for a week. There's a lot of noise and motorcycles wandering about. So from my original landing place, I was just kind of getting familiar with the area, trying to find which spot that I wanted to land in. Ended up finding some land in Belmont, and moved over there after a couple of years. The property taxes, I guess we ought to talk about. They vary widely, especially around the lake.
That's putting it very nicely.
Yeah, Molten Borough is extremely cheap. and most of this has to do with schools and how much waterfront a town has. The more waterfront you have, the more high dollar homes that are sitting there, and they're paying the bulk of the taxes, while folks in more common digs, not on the waterfront, get a pretty good deal. For Belknap County, when you have towns that don't have a lot of waterfront, the tax rates get a little steep. Where I live, Belmont is a bit high. Laconia is not horrible. Alton is good. Moulton Borough is good. And so you really, if you're going to be buying, eventually you really want to take a look at property values and property tax rates. They certainly can vary wildly, but I've been here in Belmont for 10 years, and it's a good location for me. It's a easy ride to Concord, and when I am serving in the legislature, which is going to be so shortly. So a nice half-hour ride down to Concord is nice and easy. But there's all kinds of beautiful areas around the lakes. But housing is pretty tough. A lot of it is for rentals. It's hard to come by. They are small.
One thing that we've
units.
noticed too is there's a lot of seasonal rentals that in the off season, it's easier to find them. So like, you might go up to a lake for the summer, but in the winter, you might be able to rent that out for half the price, or, some version of half price. Have you seen that around there? Is that something that you're tapped into or anything like that? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't done it myself, but I know that there is one Porcupine that does that. He has a regular winter rental, and then goes off. I'm not sure what he does for the summer. Pays a little higher rate, no doubt. But yeah, you can if you can find one of those deals and have it as an ongoing thing. It's pretty sweet deal. But yeah, there's a lot of older housing around Laconia, so that's the cheaper options. But the landlords are pretty well organized, I think, around here, and the qualifications, almost like you need to know somebody to get an apartment. There's probably a lot of spaces, but they're not perhaps above board, so to speak, and a little hard to find. But I suppose if you can find them, they're a good place to land if you're looking for something reasonable. So really work a network, social network of folks you know.
Yeah, a lot of the ones that I have helped people find recently have been word of mouth. So it definitely benefits to get involved with some of the group chats or the Facebook groups for housing searches. That definitely helps out. Thanks, Mike. We'll move on to Stephen. Stephen, are you there?
You're muted, Stephen.
Sorry, I was holding down the space bar. I thought it was working. Anyway, I was saying I rent apartments. I have no interest in buying a house personally. I don't have time for that. But I've moved pretty much once a year at least since I've been here, because I bounce around. I like it. But I've definitely found it to be the case that word of mouth is the best, or even finding like on Craigslist or Zillow or something like that, somebody that privately owns like an apartment complex or something like that, and then just talking to them and seeing if they have something coming on the market soon that's not listed yet. And like, that's how I get my current place, is snagging it before there's even an ad up for it, and just like getting in good. So you're not even like on the list to try and get in, you're just already in it. But I also, when I first moved here, I did something a little bit unconventional that I think would work really well for if you're like single and younger. I guess you could do it with a family too, but it's a little more difficult. But I got a job working at a summer camp in the Lakes region for the summer up near Plymouth. And that covered room and board. and it just got my foot in the door so I could spend my time off in the summer kind of figuring out where I wanted to move in the state and making the connections to find housing at the end of the summer. And they were pretty flexible. You know, if you're a hard worker, they're pretty flexible about kind of your start and end date on leaving that kind of housing too. So that worked out really well for moving. I could kind of like leave at my own pace kind of thing, as long as I was helping out and being like, you know, helpful around the camp there. So yeah, I don't hear enough people doing that. And I feel like that's a good option for a lot of people, because at least it guarantees you like a nice transition into moving here. It gets you good networking too.
Great. That's a great idea. I never would have thought of that. How about Drew?
So my wife and I actually came and visited New Hampshire for a weekend in March of 2021, and we stayed in Portsmouth, went to a wine tasting event, a free state wine tasting event in Exeter, and then went to the Shell, and then went to the North Country, and we just wanted to explore different parts of the state. So we initially wanted to get an apartment in Portsmouth, but Portsmouth is just crazy expensive, so we ended up getting a lease in a small apartment, a new building in Dover. And the reason we rented initially is because we just wanted to explore different parts of the state. And so that year, a year and change that we spent at Dover, we pretty much went to every kind of free state event we could. We went to Manchester, Nashua, and Lakes region, went to the North Country, Carroll County potlucks, and we went to Keene, and just did, you know, explored pretty much every part of the state, looking for where we felt most at home, and where we thought we wanted to eventually buy a house. And we closed on the house we're in now in Pittsburgh mid-July, and then moved in pretty much a day after, and we're up here, and we love it. And the thing about buying homes in a Coos County, though, is there's a very, very small supply. So there's not a lot of people up in Coos. I think the entire population of Coos County is pretty much the same as the population of Dover. I think it's like 35,000 people that live up in the county. So houses there are not a lot of homes that go on the market. Those that do, especially in the course of the last year with the market the way it's been, went so quickly. So we would, you know, put an offer in, and oftentimes before we could even put in an offer, the house was already, you know, in contract. So it took us a while to find a house we liked, and it worked out. Part of it was luck as well, but we love it up here because I think I guess to an extent it's true for all of New Hampshire, but I think it's easier to find in Coos is you can really get more bang for your buck in terms of land. And I think that's largely because Coos overall is a much more of a rural place. So if you're someone that wants to be in nature, wants to have a homestead, and wants to buy a home, in my experience, just in searching for homes over the course of the last year or so, I found that in terms of price plus land, you generally got better deals in Coos. Now that, you know, that's not necessarily always true, but that's what we found. And so that I think homesteading wise, if that's something that folks are looking for, I personally would strongly urge on Coos. Now we still you know, drive around and go to events all over the state, free state events, etc. So I think there is a misconception oftentimes about Coos, that, especially being up in Pittsburgh, that it's so far away, but you know, you really get used to it pretty quickly, and it's almost exciting to go down to, you know, events down Manchester, the Seacoast, etc., just because you can kind of make a day out of it and get, you know, shopping done and groceries done and all that kind of stuff, and then also go to a free state event. So I love it up here in Coas. I do think, at least from our experience, it does take a bit of time if you're trying to buy a house up here. In terms of apartments and leases, there aren't too many in terms of what I found. I believe there is a small apartment complex in Colebrook now, which is recent, but I'm not aware of too many apartment types of situations up in Coas. You may find homes for lease, but I think Coas would be a better place to kind of buy a home, especially a homestead type home in the longer term.
It definitely seems like if you were looking for a rental up there, you'd probably have to go the word of mouth route kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's very tough to find a rental up here, just because, like I said, the supply of properties is just so low because there aren't a lot of people up here. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. How about you, Stephanie?
So we bought a house in Peterborough, and we actually closed on our house in Massachusetts, drove up, and then same day closed on our house in New Hampshire. It was a little crazy. It worked out really well, so I was grateful for that. But we pulled in at 2:25 for a 2:30 closing in New Hampshire. So I don't recommend that. Give yourself a little more time between closings. But it was just the way it worked out. Our chickens came with us in the trailer. They were in the parking lot, and the roosters started making noise during the closing, and the lady was like, "What?" I was like, "They're just our chickens." And we've built a little homestead here. There are rentals in the area. Same thing. I think they end up going up as word of mouth in the community page events, and then they go so quick that they don't really ever make it out of the community the community pages. So definitely, if you're looking for an area, join the town pages, ask around, but they do exist. And then the housing market is still the housing market right now. But they're around too. And I think you can definitely find whatever type of housing you're looking for in our region anyway.
Great, thank you. And Jody and Emily, how about Upper Valley?
So we were looking for land. So I'm not even sure if you remember, Jody. We ended up in our area at Mascoma Lake, so a few towns away, and we were just looking for places of raw land, basically, so we could kind of do all of our wild and crazy business ideas and community ideas. So I think we just looked around and we finally found our farm, which already had buildings on it and a homestead on it, which was really magical. So we fell in love with that, ended up here. But I would say, yeah, if you're looking for land, it's a great place. But there's plenty of rentals available too, and opportunities for like Airbnb type places.
There is. Of course, I remember that. And really, it was our first time out. We spent a weekend looking around. We thought we'd start on the west side because Emily's from Vermont, and we would look around till we found something that we liked. And this is the last place we looked on the way out, and we all just fell in love with it. So, better or worse, sometimes, I mean, I really recommend to people to go start in a more central place and then rent, and then look around the state, see where you fit, see what you like. It's beautiful everywhere. I mean, everybody's like, oh, it's beautiful in this area. No, it's beautiful everywhere. And take your time so you want to find the beauty, but you also want to find the community that you fit in. So, take time to meet people in each of the communities to figure out what that is, where you fit.
That's great advice.
I know finding a house in our town is hard to do right now. Pretty popular spot, but we're also near Mount Sunapee for skiing and for all the lakes and everything. So there's tons of kayaking, fishing, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
It's a pretty popular area.
It is popular. My memory is, could be wrong, but I'm going to stick with this, that it became really hard to find houses once we instituted school choice in Croydon. like right after that, the next year, houses were just gone. They'd be on market for days, and that was it. It's remained because of the housing market, but it started like 5 or 6 years ago.
No, you totally caused it, Jody. Yeah.
I did, all by myself. Yeah.
Are you saying freedom is attractive to people? What?
Right.
Thank you very
but
much.
You also have different rental opportunities too, which I mean, a lot of opportunities have kind of fallen in our laps where we've found homes for other people and fixed them up, and our friends do Airbnb. So there's like, I feel like a lot of opportunities around still considering that.
Yeah.
Amber actually just did a webinar on short-term rentals, which is beneficial if anybody's interested in that to watch that one. It's on our YouTube page where this will be available eventually as well.
I attended that one. It was very good, actually.
All right, and then Mari, can you tell us about Merrimack? What was your experience renting and buying?
Yeah, we moved to New Hampshire in our camper. So our first 4 months here, we spent at different campgrounds. Our first month was near Emily and Jody in the Upper Valley area. And so we got to kind of know that community, which was really great. And then I ended up getting a job in Manchester, which is the nice thing about moving and being mobile and temporary. So you can kind of go where the right job could be for you. So we were able to then move to a campground. We stayed in different campgrounds within a half hour of Manchester. So we got to know those different areas. And then eventually, once it got cold enough, 4 months after living in our camper, we did get an apartment. And so it was pretty easy. I mean, I know people say that the vacancy is pretty low in Manchester. But because there's so many Porcupine connections there, people really have their pulse on like what's becoming available. There's Porcupines that are in real estate, in property management. So we were able to find a place that was month to month, which was great. Because then for the next year and a half, we rented our tiny apartment until we found our home, which we bought in Manchester. And it was just a really easy process to just kind of stay in this area. We really like it. We found, I mean, our dream was to like have this homestead, but we're from Southern California. It's really populated. And once we got here, we realized that we need a lot more city amenities than we expected. So we just enjoy that. And so we went from a 1/16 of an acre in California to a 1/3 of an acre in Manchester, which was like amazing to us. We have gardens in our backyard. It's like a big deal for us. So you know, if homesteading is your preference, there's places for that. But in Manchester, you get the city amenities and you get a really large community that's all centralized while still being able to go 5 minutes away. Like literally, I go 5 minutes away to go kayaking on beautiful rivers in Manchester, or I go to Lake Messabesic 15 minutes away, and it's like a massive place where I can go boating. So it is pretty nice here to have so much access to nature. And that's kind of the nice thing about New Hampshire in general is you can be rural if you want and still be really close to towns and amenities.
Very cool. So also on this slide, we do have some financing talk, some conventional loans, USDA, FHA, and VA loans. We won't get necessarily too far into all of that. If you have specific questions about how to find financing and all of that, please reach out to myself, Amber, or Constance. We can definitely help you with those things. House hacking is a great one to bring up. So Constance, I know you hosted a webinar on that one, and you're a big fan of it. So would you like to talk about what that means?
Yeah, I mean, the house hacking is how I was able to afford New Hampshire. I shared my 4-bedroom apartment with a roommate, and like her rent for a room was able to offset the cost of the other rooms for me and my kids. And from there, I was able to use an FHA loan to buy a 3-family, and I've kept building on that. And so I just closed on my second property, and then my partner has 2. So we've been able to grow from there. But I really love the helping people figure out how to minimize their cost of living, because New Hampshire can be more expensive, especially now. from people moving from the Midwest and the lower cost of living states. So as a realtor, we hear both. We hear, oh my God, it's so cheap here, from folks moving from high cost of living. And we hear, oh my God, I can't afford to live in New Hampshire, from people moving from, like, say, the Midwest where I was raised. I moved here from Alaska, but originally I was from Ohio. And, you know, you can still buy a very nice house in a decent neighborhood for under 100,000 in the Midwest, but you cannot, that's not possible here. I mean, maybe in Berlin, but it's even that's getting a little difficult. So house hacking is a great way to do that. The place that I just closed on is a duplex, and my adult children are going to take one unit. I'm going to have the other. So we're going to kind of use it as a single family. And when I move out, it will also cash flow. And hopefully, eventually, I will be back in a single family home. But I really like living with my tenants at the moment because they're all free staters. So that's a great thing. And yeah, I could talk a long time on house hacking, which isn't the point of the video, so, or the webinar. So
that is a great point too, that if you do decide to try to move here and buy a multifamily, you'll kind of already have a built-in audience of people to rent to based right around the community that we're in. You don't even have to talk to the outside community. You can basically just post it in one of our chats and on the Facebook group or something along those lines, and you'll have, you know, a dozen people interested in trying to move to that place probably within, you know, I would think 24 hours.
Can we say a word about property taxes too? This is something that people new to New Hampshire.
What a great lead in to the next slide, Jody.
Oh, I thought you mentioned that for housing. Sorry. Well, it is natural.
All right. Thanks, Jody. The next slide is taxes and politics. So we're going to go ahead and let Jody start us out on that.
Taxes and politics. I'll just start with taxes. We'll let Mike talk about politics. So the thing in New Hampshire is it's very town-based. I've seen people come in from out of state asking, what's the tax base in your county? And, you know, most people here are like, what county am I in? Because it doesn't matter usually, right? I mean, we all know what county we're in, but the taxes, the county rate is so low compared to the school rate. And each individual town, they set their own rates basically. So Croydon is one of what I would call a low tax town in terms of rates per thousand. And we try really hard to keep it under there. But nearby, somebody mentioned in the lakes, if you're on a lakefront, then your rate's going to be low, even though like the cost per student is really high, because the wealthier, the higher value houses will pay the rest. But the rest of the state it's more hit or miss, and you just have to look at each of the towns and see where their rates are. And Porcupine Real Estate provides such a list for you to look at.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, actually on our website, there is a relocation guide full of all sorts of resources, one of which is tax rates by town. And it's organized, town by town. It'll show you what the average tax rate is. It'll tell you which ones are the lowest, which ones are the highest. And it does vary. It doesn't just go from north to south, high or low to high, basically, over the course of the state. It's all over the board. So you might be in one town and then have a good tax rate, and then move one town over, and it could be twice what you were paying. I would like to say there's no rhyme or reason, but that's not necessarily true. You'll see the differences in the towns themselves. Not to say that one's better than the other, but there's definitely a difference from place to place.
Does anyone want to talk about politics in your area?
I could.
Oh,
I mean,
goodness.
Yeah, I'm going to talk local politics though, right? So Mike wants to talk state politics, which is also important, and you should. But actually local too, you have local issues as well. So, one of the things, so school boards, right? You could be on select boards who run the town, or they really just pay the bills and do the work, or in planning boards and getting involved. And it's really important, I think, to get involved in getting to know your neighbors outside of the Porcupine community. And because you really just want to be a good neighbor. Otherwise, you're just going to get smeared as being those free staters, like some of us have been, especially over the last year. And even though we have been good neighbors, people have very short memories. So if you want to get involved, there are so few people that actually want to get involved in the town's government. You can easily find a way to do it. You can, volunteer for committees so they get to know you, and then you get appointed because somebody steps down, and then you basically won't have anybody running against you in elections unless there was some, questionable thing that happened over the last year. I've been on the school board since 2010. I never had anybody run against me. I got appointed the first year when somebody left, like I say. And we live in a small town, population around 800, and it's hard to find people to sit on the board. So they saw that I came to board meetings because I was interested, and they came up to me and asked me if I wanted to be on the board. I said, sure. So it's been a huge learning process that whole time. But then, so last year something happened in the town that I got blamed for, even though I didn't actually do anything. And now I have somebody running against me next year. It's a 3-year term, and she'll win. I think she will, but we'll see. I haven't decided yet whether I'll run or not. So, that's the big and the small of it. You can, get involved, try to keep your taxes down, and those would be the reasons to do it, right? Make sure schools at least are working well, even if you don't believe that public schools should be a monopoly, which I don't. But at least I want to make sure they're doing things efficiently. So that's enough for now.
But I do think it's amazing. It's amazing how basically our tiny town was everyone that we knew in the school board, the town clerk, the select board, all that stuff. And so it was, like Jody said, nobody stepping into these roles. And I think we tend to be leaders, and we tend to be, okay, well, we care about our taxes, we care about our town, we care about this stuff. So we step up, and then next thing you know, we've got all the positions, and people in town didn't even realize it for, oh, wait, they're a free stater too? Oh my gosh, they're a free stater. And of course, once they found out about that, they're like, wait a second, they're running this town. And we're like, well, we've been here for 15 years. What's the problem? But yeah. I think it's wonderful that you have like these small town opportunities, especially where we live. And I'm sure that's not everywhere in the state, but I do think there's a lot of representation in New Hampshire, more so than in Vermont where I grew up. You have way more state reps, things like that. So it's nice that you can go to a town meeting and you can actually have your voice heard, literally.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of one of at least the selectmen's meetings here in Pittsburgh, and exactly as you said, Jody, it's a very, it's like 800 to 900 folks, I think, here in Pittsburgh, and I do plan to run for state legislatures as well down the road, and I think I've heard that it's not very popular to really take the effort to run up here just because it's such a long drive to Concord, but if you're willing to make that drive, there's not a great deal of competition, which is a good thing in the sense that I think up here is a lot more. It's a very red area, Pittsburgh is, but it's much more of a traditional kind of Republican variety, as opposed to more of a liberty-minded variety, at least as far as I have seen in my time here. But I do hope to change that as well. And I think exactly as you guys said, as Emily had mentioned too, the small community really affords you more and more opportunity to really be involved in your town. And I think a lot of the changes, especially with taxation, schooling, etc., does happen at that town level. I will say additionally, one of the advantages of being in a place like a Pittsburgh as well is that it's one of the few places that doesn't have any kind of zoning board or zoning requirements, which is wonderful, especially if you want to have a homestead. You can pretty much do whatever you want on your land, and that I'm pretty sure that Pittsburgh and Clarksville might be two of the only possible towns in New Hampshire that I'm allowed. That I could be wrong, but I know that down in Colebrook, for example, they give you a lot of grief if you even want to cut trees on your property, etc. But one of the reasons why we ended up choosing Pittsburgh is that the taxes are relatively on the lower side as far as New Hampshire is concerned, and also there's no zoning, which is great.
There are actually 17 towns
Oh, 17. Oh, wow.
That have no zoning whatsoever, which is there's a list of those on our website on that relocation guide.
But I'll jump in on that too and say that there are some towns that have very little zoning. And Croydon is one of those towns and is one of the things we looked at before we agreed to buy this property. But that said, so Grafton's one of those zone-free towns. They have a planning board who wants to institute some zoning rules. So make sure they don't, right? Get involved, keep it the way you want it.
So let me jump in on taxes and politics. Well, let's back up a little bit. I grew up in Rhode Island, and before I moved to New Hampshire, I was in New York for about 5 years. They have really high property taxes. They also have sales tax. They have income tax, lots of taxes. So for those who are worried about the high property taxes in New Hampshire, that's offset by the lack of the sales tax and the income tax. And the legislature has recently worked on scaling back dividend interest tax, which is essentially somewhat of a income tax. So that is scheduled to go to zero, which is certainly a good thing. And as you always hear, certain parties would like to bring in the sales tax and income tax. And the story always goes that, well, we do that and your property taxes will go down. And you can look at all the examples of where that has been sold before, and it doesn't work out that way. They just spend more money. So yeah, the property taxes can be high if you're in the wrong town, but it's not all that different than most of the other New England states. I think that you probably find Massachusetts, New York have property taxes pretty similar to what we're paying here, depending on the town, of course. So on politics, I am finishing my 10th year in the state legislature. It's been a good time. I've got the story on how it can be to join the legislature or become involved in state politics. When I moved to Belmont, I bought a piece of property, moved here in the spring of 2012, April. In June is the filing period for running for state representative. And Belmont at the time had 2 state representatives. It's a very Republican town, but there were no Republicans running in the primary. So it was an open slate for Republicans, and there were 2 Democrats that were signed up, of course, to run. So the Republican Party, was desperately seeking people to run for office, and I get a lot of arm twisting from the Liberty community throughout the state. They happened to hear that I was somewhere in the Lakes region, and do you know anyone in Belmont? Well, I just moved there and I don't know anybody, so I don't know anyone that's interested in running. So in any case, not to get too long-winded on this, I am a politician. I was convinced to run for office, which involved a write-in campaign for the primary. And it turned out there was another fellow that was also doing the same thing with me. He's also a good constitutional guy, so we hit it off pretty well. And being a Republican town, on primary day, there was one other person who, a local, who was really kind of a Green Party person, I think is probably what she would describe herself as, but she was going to run for the seat as a Republican. She came in third. Chuck Fink and I had the party behind us, and we managed to get more write-ins than she did by quite a large margin. So that once we got through the primary, that was really the campaign, and we were both elected and served. Unfortunately, we were in the minority that first term, 2012. 2013 is actually the full term. In any case, so we got in, and I've been there since. As a Liberty legislator, I've been, not more committed to Liberty than to being elected, and eventually that comes around to put a big target on me for this year. I was part of impeaching the dear beloved Governor Sununu when he did his emergency lockdown nonsense. I also was involved in declaring independence for New Hampshire. We had a little protest, and I signed off on that. That was a lot of fun. So I never really shied away from all the hot political issues. I was the prime sponsor of a secession bill, which was hugely unpopular on both sides, and was used to target myself. But along the way, so our county politics is, our county has a legislative body which is made up of the state representatives for all of the district seats in the county, and I had made my way up to chairman just by surviving the longest and having a bunch of really good local, we in the Liberty community, I think, get along very well with the conservative types. They're, constitutionalist and small government types. So we have a really strong county delegation. And I was chairman of that. And then we had a little uprising at our ski area, local ski area owned by the county, for which we appoint members. And there was a big push going on in the background having to do with Teamsters. There was a sheriff's election this year, and the Teamsters were supporting one of the candidates. So there was a bit of a convergence of factors. And in any case, I lost my primary this year. Governor Sununu sent out hit pieces on me. So I had a good decade, and we moved. Certainly, I was one of the one vote to override the veto of the death penalty repeal. So I am happy to have been one of the people who was instrumental in getting rid of the death penalty. And we've pushed civil asset forfeiture in the state very hard, a long way. We're working our way towards a purely criminal asset forfeiture legislation, which will carry on with some other sponsors this year. So I think politically, New Hampshire has lots of opportunities, whether it's local or at the state level. And the FSP in particular has been, the left is really, this is going to be public. So they're a little outraged at the Free State Project, but they are, the outrage pours over to calling anyone that is a Liberty supporter a Free Stater. So there are lots of legislators that are locals, that native to New Hampshire, been here their whole lives, and the non-Liberty lovers seem to think it's a smear. I don't think it ever has been. They've used it with really pretty poor effect in the past. They've sent out mailers describing how these people want to, have smaller government, lower taxes, and all this stuff, and they think that's like a terrible thing.
Sounds great.
I saw a post recently on Reddit where somebody showed a timeline of all the things the Free State has done in the state of New Hampshire, and they were saying that it was a negative thing. And I was like, oh, wait, this is literally a roadmap to everything that we've accomplished.
Nice.
They did the work for him. Yeah, for us, right?
It was actually really flattering.
Yeah, so this year we've had a lot of letters in the local paper, my Laconia Daily Sun, lots of people telling us how horrible the Free State Project is and how they're reducing the size of government and want to have you send your children for private education paid for by the poor taxpayers. So actually, you know, it's been pretty good for the FSB. I think the benefits from the attacks, we've finally gotten on their radar, and they made a serious move to go back at us this year. So we'll be looking for reinforcements. Send them, bring it, come on.
Thanks, Mike. That was very informative. All right, I think, does anyone else have anything they want to?
Next one.
Yeah, we can definitely move on to the next slide.
To summarize basically quickly about the taxes, before you decide where you want to settle, look at the tax rates in all the towns, because it could make a very big decision on where you end up. So.
Can I just add something really quick about national politics?
Yes, please.
Just since a lot of people talked about local. Because New Hampshire is first in the nation primary, it's like insane. In 2020, we had every Democrat candidate here in our small little town of Manchester. I mean, I know it's the big city for New Hampshire, but from where I'm from, Manchester's pretty small, and it just blew my mind that I had access to all these candidates. I mean, I could literally go see, and I did see several candidates speak in person. So if you are interested in national, it's pretty cool. And that was on the Democrat side. Trump had 2 rallies in downtown Manchester. So a lot of national stuff happens here, and it's just interesting to actually be able to see it firsthand, if that's what you like.
I was also going to mention that we can set up a max tax search as Porcupine Real Estate agents. So if you want an auto search, we can cap your tax. So that way it immediately eliminates all the high tax towns.
Great. Our next slide is on education options and school. I know homeschool is a very big thing within the Free State community. I do not have children, so anybody who would like to talk about these options, please go right ahead.
Should I start?
Go for it, Jody.
So there are a lot of private schools. Charter schools are not private in New Hampshire, by the way. It should go along with government schools, to be honest. They're all public, the charter schools. And there's a resurgence in getting them opened. There was more federal money to help push that forward. And as a result, a lot of, and at the same time with like CRT in schools and transgender issues, a lot of people want to get their kids out of the public schools. And so they're opting for private and charter as much as possible, but charter is free to them. And it also reduces your local tax rate because if you get enough kids going to them, then those kids won't be going to your schools that you are funding through your property taxes. I won't talk about homeschool, although I can say it's huge. I'll let Emily or others talk about it because I mean, those with kids, I don't have kids either, but being on the school board and I've just had a lot of, I did actually I expanded school choice in the state. I shepherded a bill through the legislature back in like 2015 that allows private schools to be tuitioned to, so your town can pay to send the tuition for a kid to go to private school if you don't provide that grade in your town. It's called town tuitioning. And there was an issue about private schools before then. It was very vague in the law. So in some places it seemed like you could, in other places it seemed like maybe you couldn't. It was not clear. And so we got it clarified and made sure that it said that private schools could be used. So Croydon is the only town so far in New Hampshire that's actually sending kids to private schools. And last year, I think it was last year, there was a US Supreme Court decision that said, basically, if you are paying for private schools with tax dollars, then it would be discrimination if you didn't also pay for religious schools. So now Croydon sends kids to religious schools too, and no other town in the state does, but anybody can. There are at least 39 towns that do have town tuitioning. There are others that have contracts that they could maybe eventually get out of and start tuitioning. That is sort of a push in the legislature to get rid of cooperative districts. And that's a whole, I mean, it's sort of where a bunch of towns band together so that they can share resources, but then the smaller towns have no say in what happens, and a lot of them actually do want to get out. So there have been some bills over the last year, and will continue to be, hopefully, until they really do relax the laws. It's nearly impossible to get out of a cooperative district. It's like asking your abusive partner to give you a divorce, and which just would never happen. I see a question. Do you want me to read this and answer it, Drew?
Sure. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay, so quick clarification. My wife and I are starting a family, so it's relevant for us. We want to homeschool despite there being a K-12 school in Pittsburgh. Can we get tax credit or money back from our taxes since we won't be sending our kids to the local school? You can have good luck trying to get money back on your property taxes. But that said, there are some state level I don't know if the right word is, there's one scholarship, there's a tax credit scholarship. You have to qualify for it, and also education freedom accounts, which in other states are called education savings accounts. And they're all funded by the state, again, not by locals. If you're a homeschooler, you have to be earning under 300% of the federal, now I lost the words that came after that, poverty level. There we go. So right now that's a 79.5 for a family of 4. So just to give you a, you got to look up those numbers for yourself for your own situation. So then you would qualify for either education freedom accounts or tax credit scholarships for homeschooling, for tutoring, for private schools, for, I mean, really, even to go to another public school, if there were one near Pittsburgh that you wanted to go to. I'm guessing there isn't, being a small isolated town. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. Thanks, Jody. Appreciate it.
Yep. So that got into some of the other school options there. So thank you for that.
As far as homeschool resources, can we just touch on that real quick as far as the community goes?
Sure. So, well, I mean, I just want to put out there that Granite State Home Educators is a great resource for anybody who wants to homeschool. And now I'll let the homeschoolers talk.
Yeah, Granite State Home Educators has a lot of resources available for homeschooling families, and they go over the RSAs so that you can be compliant, for lack of a better word, so that you know the regulations to homeschool, and they're very minimum. We've also done a pretty extensive webinar on that as well. I homeschool my children, and I've always homeschooled them. New Hampshire is great for it. And there's so many clubs, groups, co-ops, field trips. It's been great for our family.
Yeah, for us too. We had opportunities to join other local homeschool co-ops that already existed here. But I think it's kind of neat. When we first moved here, we met a family that lived in the area. They had older kids, middle school, high school, and they wanted like a tutor for the summer. So I ended up tutoring them, and I took them to the Upper Valley homeschool group, which was, including some of Vermont, of course, and went to those meetups. And as those kids got older and that group kind of fizzled out. So a few years ago, I said, well, let's just reboot that. And so it's kind of turned into a Liberty homeschool group just kind of by default. A lot of people that ended up joining were for health freedom and stuff like that. So we were actually willing to go places without masks and such. So now our group is less on Facebook and more a special Signal group. So basically, as Stephanie was kind of mentioning earlier, you got to kind of meet somebody to get in the know, to be connected and get hooked up on these Signal groups or on, the other different chat groups that exist, to find out about some of the events and the schedules and stuff like that. Because it's not all on the FSB calendar. Because I think the FSB calendar would be too hard to read, honestly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely finding the in your community, and then the door opens and there's just so much to do. I do a homeschool enrichment program. I had started it in Mass and then reopened in New Hampshire when we moved. And there's so much already here, which I didn't find as much in the area we were in Mass. And so now I struggle kind of coordinating schedules of what I'm offering versus what other people are offering, because we want to participate in it all and we really can't. We have to really, each week we're like, okay, these are our options. What are we doing this week? Because we can't do it all.
That is the hardest problem, and we want to get to one of your events soon.
It's so hard. So definitely more on the calendar than you can do. And then tagging on to what Jody was talking about, I'm sure it's true for all of the regions, but there's a lot of charter schools in our area, and a new one actually just opened this year, which I was pretty excited about. And just there's a lot of education options, so you can definitely find what works best for your family. And I try to stress to people, education is not a one size fits all approach. And what's going to work for one family isn't necessarily going to work for another. So really being okay to look at all of your options, try something. If it's not working, try something else, but you can definitely find something that will work for you.
I wanted to, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I have also heard, and this is, we don't have kids yet, but we will soon. But I've also heard that it's possible for kids to take part in sports, even if they are being homeschooled, they can still take part in local public school sports, etc. So just wanted to point that out as well, that there is a great deal of flexibility in terms of kind of taking a little of all the worlds. In a sense, you kind of have the core curriculum being done at home, but also get the benefit of the sports from local schools.
Yeah, actually, it's more than sports. You can take advantage of a lot of activities that they have in schools. Hell, you're paying the property taxes. Think about it. Like, ask really if there's something there that you want your kid to do, music, whatever, right? Could even be courses, chemistry, whatever. So that's one point that's definitely out there. Another is Granite State Home Educators. The founder is a Free Stater. Just want to put that out there. And she and a group of people, and I don't know that it's all Free Staters, but that doesn't matter. They're willing to to mentor people into starting their own homeschooling and helping them learn unschooling if that's what they want, or whatever it is. So they have resources at that level too, not just activities. They get down to that. But the final thing that I want to say, at least at this moment, is the requirements for homeschooling in New Hampshire got rolled back by Michelle Lavelle, Free Stater, back in and others. I mean, she didn't do this by herself. Back in 2012. I'm trying to remember the names of the other people who were involved, but it doesn't matter. And so now the rules are basically you have to report once that you're going to homeschool your kids. So basically they're not truant, right, if they're not going to school. And two, that you have to test your kid every year or keep a portfolio of what your kid's doing, but you never have to show either of them to anybody. So those are the two rules. Now, that all said, I know so many people who don't report. I know somebody who had 6 kids, homeschooled all of them. They all graduated, whatever that is, from high school and went on. And I mean, that was it. And that's ancient history already. So it's flexible, but it's your family, right? You have to make those decisions.
If you want to get the EFA, the Education Freedom Account funds, you do have to notify the state that you are homeschooling.
That's right.
Great.
And if you were already in public school too, you have to get out of that system. So
that's right. That makes sense.
We're just gonna, there's so much more to cover on education. I'm sure we could do a whole 2 hours just on education, but I know there's been a couple other webinars that we've done and talks and other things like that. So we'll just move on from this one because we've got a couple left to cover and we've only got about 10 minutes left. So sorry to cut anybody off. So jobs and industry would be the next one. We actually just hosted a webinar in regards to how to find a job here in New Hampshire. Some amazingly good tips and tricks for resumes and interviewing processes. And then we also talked about just how to go about finding those leads within the community, as well as just how to get yourself out there to find work here in the Granite State. If anybody would like to do a quick kind of one-off of how they came to find a job while they moved to New Hampshire, that would be great.
I can chime in if nobody else is yet. I found in my industry that it worked really well to find out who the industry leaders were and then contact them directly. And it's a bit unconventional, other than, I mean, obviously traditional following job ads on like Indeed and Craigslist and LinkedIn, that kind of stuff. But also just like doing, it's not that big of a state. So you can literally just find out who the top people are in the state for your career path. And like some of the people I did, if I couldn't find their email or phone number, I just found them on Facebook and shot them a message and said, like, you know, who are the other people I should talk to? Who do you think is hiring? Where should I go work? What, you know, what should I, you know, what options are out there? What are the best employers in the state and that kind of thing? And I thought that really worked out well. And it like laid the groundwork for future opportunities in a big way.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Remote work is always available. That's what I've always done, actually.
Yeah, remote work. If one thing came out of COVID that was for the positive, it showed everybody that you can do a lot of stuff from home as far as remote work goes. And that has been a real big boon for the real estate industry in New Hampshire, just opening up basically the entire state for everybody. So.
Yeah, that's actually precisely what allowed my wife and I to live up in Pittsburgh, being so far out, and then we also started our own company within just a few months of being here, and New Hampshire makes that super easy to do. So,
I would like to add that New Hampshire is very business friendly, especially small businesses. Of course, if you're in the Free State community, you're even more supported, but just New Hampshire in general is great for entrepreneurs. We started our own business, but I think the first week we moved to New Hampshire, I was like, oh, I need at least a part-time job for now until we figure out what's going on. And I was like, ooh, look, a gymnastics gym in the next town. Let's go check it out. And I walked in, I said, hey, here's my experience. Are you hiring? And he says, I am now. And I've worked there ever since. So it was super easy. And that was a while ago. So, but I just definitely stress, like, if you can start your own business or you want to, it's a great place to do it.
Anyone else want to share any experience? Okay.
I mean, unemployment's so low here. Everybody does seem to be hiring all the time. And like the little bit of red tape that you've had, like I opened a business this year, and the little bit of red tape you have to go through, it seems like all of the inspectors, including the Liquor Commission, who I'm not a fan of, really just wanted you to open, and like they're just like, they want to do whatever they can, you know, you don't have to grease the wheel as much. They just want you to be there and be opening, because they live here too, and it's lots of small communities, and yeah, they're really business friendly for sure.
I've noticed the exact same thing, especially in smaller towns, because there isn't so much going on in smaller towns where they're like, oh, we've got so many restaurants want this location or something like that. If you come into a place with a good business plan, they're going to bend over backwards to make sure that they give you any options that you would need.
Mm-hmm.
You also have the Chamber of Commerce, at least in our area, the Chamber of Commerce and other like young entrepreneurs. I mean, this is just a regional thing for us, and they really highlight local businesses. So it's definitely ingrained in the culture.
Awesome. And then Amber, do you want to talk about the resources and tips you can find?
Yeah, so like we've mentioned a couple times, we have a very extensive website, porcupinerealestate.com. There's a relocation guide, there's different guides highlighting each area, and the FSP calendar. Can't stress it enough. I mean, you can find any event you want there. We're a very, very interactive community. There's so much going on. Just reach out, ask for help if you need it. Our community loves to help people. I mean, I moved here in 2014 and we've had ups and downs since we've been here, but we've been able to stay because of the community. People are always willing to help if you're willing to help them.
Very well put. So in conclusion, basically, we want you to move here. So anybody who has any questions or specific requests on information, feel free to move out, to reach out to any of us. We're all pretty public facing folks here, especially with the Porcupine Real Estate. We've got requests for information on the website, very easy to get to. Constance, anything that you'd like to add at the end?
No, I think you guys covered a lot. I mean, and again, we have a lot of webinars that touch, or that things that we touched on this that we went into more detail in other webinars. So please check out the rest of the YouTube channel for more information.
Well, and with that, I'd just like to thank everybody who participated tonight. It was great seeing you all. And we'll do this again sometime, hopefully.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good night.
Bye.